Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Herman School Committee to order on Monday, July 7th, 2025. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. White, could we have roll call, please?
Stephanie Euler.
Here.
Anthony Reynolds.
Here.
Jonathan Smith.
Here.
Eugene Sullivan.
Here.
Brian Penziano.
Here.
Debbie Wallace.
Here.
David Hart.
Here.
Thank you. Welcome to our new committee members, Mr. Smith and Mr. Sullivan. I know you'll find this to be a really productive and worthwhile experience. At this time, we will call for the nomination of the school committee chair, and I open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations to be made?
I make a motion for Tony Reynolds for chair.
I second the nomination of Tony Reynolds for chair.
We have a first and a second for Mr. Reynolds. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, we will close the nominations and ask for a roll call vote, please. A vote yes is in favor of Mr. Reynolds for school committee chairperson.
Stephanie Euler.
Yes.
Tony Reynolds.
Yes.
John Smith.
Yes.
Eugene Sullivan.
Yes.
Brian Penziano.
Yes.
Debbie Wallace.
Yes.
David Hart.
Yes.
Would you like to handle the vice chair nominations, or do you want me to keep going?
No, keep going. You're doing this stuff.
At this time, I will open the floor for nominations for school committee vice chair. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Eugene Sullivan for vice chair.
Is there a second for that nomination?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the nomination of Mr. Sullivan for vice chairperson. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Seeing none, we close the nominations and ask again for a roll call vote. A vote of yes or yay indicates approval for Mr. Sullivan in the position of vice chair.
Yes.
Stephanie Euler. Tony Reynolds.
Yes.
Jonathan Smith.
Yes.
Eugene Sullivan.
Yes.
Brian Penziano.
Yes.
Debbie Wallace.
Yes.
David Hart.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And one final piece from me, and then I will hand the microphone, look at these nice microphones, over to our chairperson. The chairperson had asked that regarding the subcommittee assignments, that our committee members email the chairperson and me and let us know of the committee or committees that you might be interested in participating in, and then the roster will be designed from there. So if you want to give some thought to where you feel your voice would be best heard, and just get back to Mr. Reynolds and myself, that would be helpful. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to you for approval of minutes.
Okay. I need a motion for the approval of minutes, please, for the
Motion.
regular meeting, for the regular meeting, June 9th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
I do have one adjustment. It's a clerical error. If it could be changed from agenda to minutes. It's just
Yes.
clerical.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And Jody, if I do something wrong, you have the right to holler at me, and so does the superintendent. Just nudge me on the screen. Okay, I guess that's the chair comment. No, the chair comments is we want to try to turn the temperature down a little bit because we've had a lot of upset people. I'm going to try something different during our discussions of new business and old business. If somebody really has something that they want to say, they can raise their hand, come up to the mic and say it. Now, we're going to try this for a while. We may have to go back to the old way, but we need to move the business forward as fast as we can. But if you have something to say, and you know, we may not have thought of it, it's probably be a good idea to stand up and say it, okay? All right, I guess that's chair comments. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. We have a presentation to make to one of our students, and I'm going to invite Mr. Sinclair first to come to the microphone to start things off.
Dr. Sargent, thank you, and school committee members, thank you for fitting us into your agenda this evening and giving us a chance to recognize one of the outstanding student athletes that we have here at Herman High School. For those of you that don't know, to my left is Deja Grant. She will be a junior this fall at Herman High School, but she's up here tonight to be recognized for her outstanding sophomore season in outdoor track this past spring. One of the neat parts of the story here is Deja started outdoor track this year. So for her to be standing here and to be recognized as she is about to be certainly adds to the accomplishment. Just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that Deja did this year in indoor track. We are here for a purpose, and we'll get to that at the end. But not indoor track, in outdoor track this year, Deja broke the school record for the long jump 5 times, and she broke the school record for the triple jump 11 times. Her long jump record of 17 feet 9 inches and her triple jump record of 36 feet 6.5 inches are both among the best in state history. Right? She's 6 weeks into her career. She has the facility record at our new track for the 100-meter dash and for the triple jump. She was the triple jump champion at the PVC large school meet, which is significant because that includes the Class A schools in our conference. So she's beating Hamdens and Bangors and Brewers at this meet. Sorry, I have to check my notes. There's so many things. She was a member of the 4x100 meter relay team this year that placed at both the PVC championships and at the state championship meet, and one of the fastest outdoor 4x100 relay teams that we've had in school history. She also, in addition to her wins, finished second in the state in long jump at the PVCs and at the state championship, obviously. She finished 8th at the New England Championship in the triple jump, and she finished 14th in the New England Championship in the long jump. So, as I said, that's probably just starting to go over what she accomplished this spring, but those are some of the highlights. Her crowning achievement, her crown jewel, happened at Freeport High School during the MPA State Championship meet on June 10th. She earned the Class B State Championship for the triple jump with a jump of 36, her school record of 36 feet 6.5 inches. She did this on her first jump, and she distanced the second place finisher by more than a foot. So a dominating performance at the best time, for sure. So we're here tonight, Deja. Your state championship will be added to the minutes and will become part of the history of Herman High School. And I hope you have a lot more of those for us to add to this one. She has a very high ceiling. She's just starting to learn the sport and just starting to reach her potential, and she still has 2 more years to go. So it's going to be a very exciting couple of years for her and for us to follow her. And I got an idea I might be back in front of you again doing this at this time next year. So, Deja, congratulations, and please feel free to go around and introduce yourself to everybody. One more thing, Deja, don't run away. At this time, I'd like to introduce Representative Thorne to come up. He has a sediment to present to Deja from the legislature.
One of the better things of my job. Deja, nice to meet you. I'm Representative Jim Thorne. I represent Carmel and Herman. And again, one of the more pleasant parts of my job is recognizing outstanding students like yourself that represent Herman in a wonderful way. And if you will allow me, I would like to read this legislative sentiment aloud with the help of my glasses. Be it known to all that we, the members of the Senate and House of Representatives, join in recognizing Deja Grant of Herman, who won the women's varsity triple jump event at the Class B State Track and Field Championships. We extend our congratulations and our best wishes, and be it ordered that the official expression of legislative sentiment be set forth on behalf of the 132nd Legislature and the people of the state of Maine. Congratulations. And furthermore, I would like to invite you back down to the State House in January when we go back in session, where we could recognize you there on behalf of all the people of Herman. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thorne. Congratulations again, Deja. Really, really marvelous. There are two other parts of our superintendent's report. The first is that this is the time of year when school districts begin to prepare their grant application for Title I funds and other funds. This is part of the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is part of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA. ESEA was first introduced in 1965 by President Johnson to provide all students with full educational opportunity. Title I is a large component of ESSA. In fact, Herman's allocation last year was over $250,000. Much of that goes to offset some teacher salaries for staff members who work with students on reading support and math support. The intent of Title I funding is to ensure success for all students and schools, with goals to close the achievement gap, increase equity, improve the quality of instruction, and increase outcomes for all students. Federal funds are distributed based on supporting the learning of low-income students. Once funds are distributed to school districts, any child in a Title I school, in this case, our funds predominantly go to Durham Elementary School. Regardless of income, any child may access title programming based on academic need. In our situation at Durham School, our goals have focused on developing math skills, developing literacy skills, encouraging parent involvement in child's education, and developing problem-solving skills. The public comment period, where we invite community members, parents, to provide us feedback on where they think the funding would be best suited, or ideas that you have for increasing math, literacy, or parent involvement skills. Those comments may be directed to Dr. Davis, our principal of Durham School, or to me between now through June 30th. And we wanted to make sure that we embed that open public comment invitation in the superintendent's remarks so that it gets embedded in our minutes and we have that there. Second, we posted under superintendent's remarks that we would take time to have a workshop setting for the presentation of some policies for second read. I want to make sure that we understand, both our committee members and our public, there is no call for action on the policies that I'm going to be presenting to you this evening, out of fairness to the fact that we have two new sitting school committee members and that this is essentially a reorganization meeting with new leadership in place. I felt it would be more appropriate to have the discussion, hear questions from committee members, hear questions from community members, and then schedule the voting on behalf of these policies for the August meeting when people have had time to really consider and reflect on what's being presented. So for our consideration tonight, we have 2 policies and really 2 complaint procedures. The first is policy ACAA, which speaks to how the district deals with harassment and sexual harassment of students and what our philosophy is to prevent that. And then there are complaint procedures associated with a student who has allegations of discrimination, harassment, and Title IX sexual harassment. Under ACAB, we have a related policy. This is on how to prevent harassment and sexual harassment of school employees, what our philosophy is there. And then ACAB-R, which, similar to the student version, is the complaint procedures for employees. Previously, the school committee had been discussing policy AC, which is non-discrimination, equal opportunity, and affirmative action. This policy, it turns out, was never revised from the earlier 2020 version and therefore does not require action at this time. So what brings us to these revisions? And I want everyone to know that once we move through the presentation this evening, we will be sure to post this on our district website tomorrow morning. So if you want to review it in your leisure, you'll have an opportunity to do so. Essentially, what this timeline shows us is that there were a number of actions under the Biden administration where there was an attempt to open up interpretation of Title IX regulations and policies, in particular associated with expanding protection for LGBTQ+ and pregnant students. And in the end, in August of 2024, the Supreme Court blocked the Biden administration's request to enforce and expand those parts of Title IX. The 11th Circuit blocked the implementation of the final rule. In the end, in December 2024, the Biden administration withdrew its proposed regulation on transgender student participation in athletics. In January 2025, after lawsuits halted the Biden administration's Title IX rule in 26 states, a federal judge struck it down nationwide, which brings us to where we are now. In February of 2025, the Department of Education indicated that it will enforce the 2020 Title IX regulations that were enacted during President Trump's first term, which is why when you see that we have policies, as we will this evening, that were approved in 2024, we need to bring them back to language from 2020. And I'll try to walk that through for each of you this evening. So let's take a look first at ACAA, which is the harassment and sexual harassment of students. And this is the just the amendment timeline that this policy has been through in our district. Thought it would be helpful to do a side-by-side comparison so that we can see what language has really changed here. And again, everyone will have an opportunity to view this on your own once we finish with the presentation. What I've done is the policy that we currently have is on the left. That's the 2024 version. The policy that's being recommended, which brings us back to the interpretation of Title IX under Trump's 2020 term, that is on the right in red, and this has already been through a first read. It's up for a second read. You'll see essentially the pieces that have been taken out include the terms sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy or related conditions, parental, family, or marital status, and this is for discrimination of students. We take a look at another section of this policy. We look at the protected categories, and then you see that smaller harassment definition on the right, which says harassment includes but is not limited to verbal abuse and other offensive conduct based on race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, religion, ancestry or national origin, or disability. Harassment that rises to the level of physical assault, battery, and or abuse, and or bullying behavior are also addressed in policies JICIA, which speaks to weapons, violence, and school safety, or JICK, which speaks to anti-bullying. The next section of these policies, you'll see again just a little bit of a delineation between definitions for sexual harassment on the left, which is the 2024 current language. The recommendation is to remove "and other forms of sex-based harassment." And then you'll see that the various categories of sexual harassment on the right, quid pro quo, hostile environment, and sexual assault as defined in federal law, those are just much more condensed and the language is much tighter there. As we move on under policy ACAA, this language is identical in both versions. In the version on the left, our current 2024, and the version on the right, which brings us back to interpretation of Title IX under 2020 and President Trump's administration interpretation. When it comes to reports and complaints of harassment, you'll see on the left, the phrase used to be all employees except employees designated by the school unit as confidential employees in regard to sexual, sex-based harassment complaints. That is deleted, and that phrase does not show up on the right-hand side. I think essentially the biggest difference comes at the bottom, where the current policy speaks to two different complaint procedures. One complaint procedure is R1, which speaks to discrimination and harassment complaints for students. And then there is a separate complaint procedure, R2, which speaks to student sex discrimination and harassment complaints. Under the updated recommended on the right-hand red side, this condenses this down to just one single form, and it would be the student discrimination, harassment, and Title IX sexual harassment procedures. So you go from two different forms down to one, and that one form captures both harassment and Title IX sexual harassment as defined under 2020 terminology. So then we look at ACAB, which is the policies that are in place for harassment and sexual harassment of school employees. So the key difference here now is that we're not talking about students and we're not talking about minors. We're talking about adult behavior, ideally, or not ideally, but often staff member or employee behavior. This is the record of approvals for this policy. And if we look at the same format, current policy from 2024 is on the left. The recommended 2020 interpretation policy is on the right. It looks the same almost as if when we were discussing the student version, which is that the terms sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy or related conditions is deleted, as is parental or marital status. When we look at definition of harassment, you'll see that there's language taken out of the policy that we currently have, and this recommended interpretation reads that harassment includes, but is not limited to, verbal abuse, threats, physical assault, and or battery based on race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, religion, ancestry, or national origin, age, genetic information, or disability. Under the Maine Civil Rights Act, violence or threats of violence against a person or their property based on their sexual orientation are also illegal. Still looking side by side, the language that's been crossed out on the left, which is our current version, again, crosses out that term and other forms of sex-based harassment. The term sex-based harassment, again, in that first paragraph. again in the second paragraph. And then we also take out the term including sexual orientation, gender identity, sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy, or related conditions. So the definitions of sexual harassment under Title IX, under the recommended Trump administration 2020 version, is just tighter and more concise. Still looking at a side-by-side comparison, on the left, our current language states that under Maine law, sexual harassment is defined as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. On the new version, under another federal law, Title VII, and under Maine law regulations, sexual harassment is defined differently. And then we list out A, B, and C, which is very similar to the A, B, and C on the left. Submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of an individual's employment. Submission to or rejection of such conduct by an employee is used as the basis for an employment decisions affecting the employee, or such conduct has the purpose and effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. So what I think we're seeing here is certainly delineation of key phrases, but overall the spirit of both policies, both the student version and the staff, employee, adult version, still very consistent. And the last, again, just like we saw in the student form, under the employee, there was R1 and R2, one that dealt with how to handle a complaint procedure for discrimination and harassment, and another on how to handle a complaint procedure for sex discrimination. And the recommendation is that we move to just one complaint procedure. And actually, in our instance in Herman, this had already been done. You'll see that as we get to a further deep dive into the complaint procedure, that we had already moved a year or so ago to collapse both those forms down to one. With the students, we did not, but with the staff, we did. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. Board members, that's been just a look side by side at student harassment, sex discrimination, and then staff harassment, sex discrimination. I'm just going to pause in case there are questions that people just need to get out before they forget. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead then and look at the complaint procedures. And again, do that side by side so that we're aware of what's new and what's different. And I've listed here just the reminder that when all is said and done, when this has been approved eventually, we'll be looking at just ACAA-R, and we would look to abolish R1 and R2 because we're collapsing both forms into one. So here's your side-by-side, and rather than list this out word for word, because essentially this no longer describes policy, this really describes what are the procedures when someone has a complaint. If a student has a complaint or an adult makes a complaint on a student's behalf, that they are being harassed, that they're being a victim of sexual harassment, these are the procedures that our Title IX coordinator, that our affirmative action coordinator would be following. So the first thing that we start with is we start with definitions. You'll see right away that the new, the old 2020 version that we would be reverting to just outlines the definitions much more clearly. So under definitions on section 1, you get a definition for discrimination or harassment. You get a definition for discrimination. You get a separate definition for harassment, and then complaint. On the right, you get very specific definitions for discrimination or harassment, discrimination, harassment, sexual orientation, gender identity, complaint, and complaints of bullying that do not involve the protected categories or definitions described. And then you have a separate list of definitions for Title IX sexual harassment, specifically quid pro quo, hostile environment, and sexual assault, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking as they are defined under federal law. Further, you have definitions for report, formal complaint, and student. So they really leave nothing for interpretation here. When we look at Section 2, these are identical. Section 2, the complaint procedure, speaks to how to make a complaint, how the complaint is handled and investigated, including timelines, finding and subsequent actions, appeals, both the process for appeal and the timeline for appeal, and then records and how long records are kept. The next section, on the left-hand side, now we've moved to R2. Remember, it's currently 2 forms, so R2 speaks to sex discrimination and harassment. So we're back to those same definitions again. So on the left, it's a whole new set of definitions for complainant, complaint, confidential employee, discrimination, gender identity, parental status, party, pregnancy and related conditions, respondent, retaliation, your 3 subcategories of sex-based harassment, sexual harassment, sexual orientation, and student. On the right, we saw these before a few slides earlier because it's all part of one report, or it will be all part of one report, and it's those same definitions that I read to you just a short bit ago. Under R2, which again is our current practice for how we handle complaint procedures for students with allegations of sex discrimination or adults filing on their behalf, you'll see there's the report, the complaint procedure there. And then the last thing I'll point out under Section 3 is that the Affirmative Action Officer, Title IX Coordinator, maintains these records for a period of 7 years. The harassment complaint procedure on the right-hand side, very consistent with how to make a report, how to make a formal complaint, emergency removal or administrative leave. And this speaks to if a student is in danger or if there is an adult staff member involved, sometimes there may be the need for an administrative leave to remove that staff member from the learning environment for a brief period of time, and that outlines that procedure. Notice of parties to formal complaint, the informal resolution process with a note that that cannot be used to resolve a formal complaint where a student is the complainant and the respondent is an employee. The investigation itself, the determination of responsibility, remedies, disciplines, and other actions, appeals, and records with that same requirement that records in connection with sexual harassment reports and the complaint procedure will be maintained for a minimum of 7 years. That's the student complaint procedure. We take a look at the employee discrimination, harassment, and Title IX sexual harassment complaint procedures. Again, this already was one document. There are minor changes on this as our committee looks to understand what's different with a second read recommendation. You'll see that we have a slight change in the definitions where on the right-hand side, we add a definition for familial status under number 9. Under sexual harassment complaint procedure definitions, those are the same. There's a definition for Title IX sexual harassment, which again speaks to quid pro quo, hostile environment, and then the sexual assault, dating violence terms as they're defined under federal law, and then definitions for report, formal complaint, and employee. This section is identical. It looks a little different, but the pieces are the same. How to make a complaint, including complaint handling investigation, findings and subsequent actions, appeals, timeline and whatnot, and records. And then finally, the complaint procedure. And what I'll note here is the key difference is that on the right, when we get to administrative leave, this section under the recommended 2020 interpretation is just much more concise about if there's a need to recommend a leave of absence for any of the staff members involved in the investigation It just more clearly outlines what that procedure would be. So in summary, what we would be looking at would be policies that would be recommended for second read at the August 4th meeting, and this includes ACAA, which is harassment and sexual harassment of students, with the side-by-side that I've showed you. Everything in red is what is recommended, which brings us back to the 2020 Trump administration interpretation of Title IX and those policies. The associated reporting complaint procedure, -R, that goes along with that. Additionally, ACAB, which is the harassment and sexual harassment of school employees, and the related complaint procedure that goes with that. And then following that, we would also recommend the abolishment of R1 and R2, those two different complaint procedures, because now they've been consolidated into one. So with that, let me start with committee members. Is there anything that has not been made clear to you or anything that you'd like further information on?
Are you asking for us to make a motion to table them until next time?
There's actually no need for a motion. They're not even presented on your agenda this evening, with the understanding that we wanted our new committee members to be able to come up to speed in a true workshop model for school committee members to ask questions, for our public to share their comments if they have any, and then to take that into consideration as we prepare for this motion to come on for the August meeting.
Can we make recommendations?
You may make recommendations this evening, or you may also refer them once we have subcommittees set up. You may make recommendations to the policy subcommittee members, and they can review that with the documents right in front of them. All right. So, Mr. Reynolds, with that, I'll leave it to you whether you want to open to the public for their concerns, but I'm going to take a seat and get out of everyone's way so they can come to the podium.
I did have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
So in thinking about, I guess, a few aspects, notably under a hostile environment, like the move away from subjectivity to purely objective standards, and to talk about the language was so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. Keyword there being and. So the idea that for something to qualify for a hostile environment has to satisfy each of those, whereas, I think we all know about harassment. One time is enough, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a shame that the language couldn't be or. So severe, pervasive, or objectively offensive, so that it satisfies any one of those. That's a brief thought on that. Also the idea of pervasive, right? That means it happens continuously all over the place. Again, one time is enough, mm-hmm. as far as I'm concerned. So that was my thought. It was interesting to see it move away from subjectivity to objectivity. And I don't know if you want to speak to that or
a lot of times with policy, when we have federal language that's recommended to us, then if we're going to stray too far from that, then I think we need to loop in some other folks for opinions.
Right. Yeah. The other, I had these are more direct questions. Are there anything in the reporting sections? Is there anything that speaks to freedom from retaliation? So, complainant. I think that's part of sexual harassment trainings I've been through, where if somebody makes a complaint, they're free from retaliation. And so does that come into play in any of this?
That is clearly stated in the complaint procedures, that not only do we make that clear in both the student and the staff version, it's written into the complaint procedure policy that retaliation is not to be tolerated, and that's not only for the person bringing forth the complaint, but for the person or persons that they would be naming in the complaint.
Okay. And likewise for witnesses. So again, trainings I've been through around sexual harassment, it's not just the person who's going through it, but witnesses are so important too, right? See something, say something. Mm-hmm. And so, is there any language or thinking around that? How do we support witnesses in making complaints.
Right. One of the things that we do as a required introduction to every new school year is that all of our staff members, and we're adding our coaches to that as well, all of the staff members are required to read through and sign off. Sometimes there's a quiz associated with it, but sign off on those really critical policies, which speak to harassment, intimidation, and bullying of students, or anti-harassment, Title IX sexual harassment, child find, child abuse reporting. And so that's all considered part of that. And embedded within that is that environment of, in a productive work environment, in a productive learning environment, if you see it, you report it and you tell someone, because for a number of reasons, the person who is the victim may just not feel comfortable coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members.
Okay, I'll open it up for public comment, because I know some people wanted to speak more or less about student athletes, so I want to make sure they're heard. Although the verbiage here really is a little bit different than that, but I want to make sure everybody's heard. So, but please do it quickly. Haley, I can see you're ready.
I appreciate the wait, Tony. Just a few points that I wanted to bring up. One, I asked multiple times for this packet to be available when I saw this was on the agenda, so it was unclear. Mr. Venziano had made a public comment about this being a workshop and that it was going to be done later on after you guys had a subcommittee meeting and you guys had stated who was going to be in those meetings, so it's a little confusing to the public who wanted to be able to speak to this.
I think it was originally done, Haley, so we could meet just with that one topic in a workshop and hear everything. But so we have never got that far, but I wanted to open up tonight just to hear from anybody here.
Okay.
And if we continue on, we may have a workshop with just that one thing on.
Okay, because I agreed when I made the motion in May, that was what my intention was, is that this one policy was tabled and it was going to be brought forward in a transparent fashion so we could see the policy from the public and be prepared to come and speak to it. I appreciate what was shared, but it would have been beneficial for the public to see those documents in advance so they could speak to that. And yeah, so I was just going to define what a workshop is. So what you're saying is you will be possibly going forward with this particular policy,
I
Title
hope
IX?
so, if the rest of the committee wants to do that. And
because you made the statement that this was a second reading, and
well, this is the second reading of that language, but I think something else, if something new got thrown in when people started talking about student athletes, that's not on, you know.
I mean, the information wasn't shared with the public so that they could have a normal workshop to be prepared to share that with you tonight. It wasn't
Right.
advertised anywhere.
Right, that's why I'm saying we really need to have one later, but that's up to the superintendent and the school committee. No, I don't make the decisions myself, so. But I assume we will have that, maybe.
Just do it at the next meeting when you do the second reading.
Yeah.
Well, how would they give you feedback before a second reading for the policy to be drafted or changed? You need to have a workshop and then you have a second meeting so it's all drafted and ready to go. I just want to be clear for the public so they can understand how the process works.
Of course. And again, our goal tonight was not to rush anything and to be able to have community members who are present this evening the opportunity to see the presentation. It'll be posted in the morning, so there'll be more time to review it. When we have our August meeting, there are a number of times where a school committee will review policy. We've seen this policy already for second reading. It's been set aside. So if the school committee members feel at the August meeting, based on feedback from the community or based on their own internal dialogue, that they're just still not ready to move forward and it needs more work, there certainly is no rush and it could be set farther off.
Okay, could you clarify if you received a second opinion, a legal opinion, independent on this particular policy, Title IX?
So in looking at the current 2024 version and then the version of 2020 under Trump administration interpretation, I did not receive legal opinion. I looked at a number of various Title IX and government websites, on the U.S. Department of Education website, and then looked at other schools in the area who've already approved these policies to understand the language that they were using. I understand that there was concern over various perceived biases over some of the various law firms that might be consulted, and so I went to look at government records instead.
Is that something that the committee could consider, is seeking an independent second opinion for our workshop so that you could receive different information that's legal?
You mean, you want us to pay for an attorney with our $10,000 budget that we have?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that could be provided through other means. I believe that the committee received information where that could be provided to you.
Okay.
I'll see what other people have to say.
Okay, I have Alan Savarinus from Topsom. This one's public comment.
Good evening. It's Alan Sarvinas from Topsom. I live in Topsom with my wife and 2 kids. Tonight I'm here representing Parents' Rights in Education, Maine. We work in many school districts. At this point we have countless members across the state, including now Herman, which we helped run a petition during the June 10th elections in the area. So there's hundreds of Herman parents that we're now starting to work with, and I passed out my testimony tonight so you can see what we're focused on, and hope to get your feedback at the end. Now there's a new chairman, Mr. Reynolds. So the testimony I hand you would be a little bit different. So Chairman Reynolds, Herman School District members and Superintendent Sargent, Dr. Sargent, I am Alan Sarvinas, Maine State Director of Parents' Rights in Education. I am testifying on behalf of countless Herman families who believe parents, not the government, are primary stakeholders in their children's upbringing, education, and well-being. Since 1972, Title IX has guaranteed female athletes equal opportunities to compete safely, fairly, and with dignity. Recognizing biological differences between males and females is not discriminatory. It is reality, and it is now federal law. Maine Statute 20-A MRS 6501, which is the education section of Maine law, still mandates all of our rights to have sex-based bathrooms. And contrary to what you may hear, providing separate spaces and competitive divisions for girls is not exclusionary, but protective. Courts across the country, including Doe versus RSU 26, here in Maine, have constantly clarified Title IX was designated to prevent sex-based discrimination, not to erase students' sex-based rights. Allowing males to compete in girls' sports or access private spaces undermines everything Title IX stands for. The impact on Herman's daughters is not theoretical. We've already seen girls nationwide lose scholarships, fall in rankings, and be silenced in their locker rooms. You have a Herman family directly harmed by this unfair and unsafe practice. And the harm is not just between the sidelines. The chilling effect violates female athletes and their freedom of expression as cited by federal courts on January 9th, 2025. Leadership means acting before harm is done, and in your case, it means acting before any more damage is incurred. Several school districts, MSAD 70, 52, and now RSU 73, have already passed mandates ensuring sex-based privacy and competitive integrity. Herman can do the same by adopting the Maine Education Initiative's Title IX resolution. This legally based action will fulfill your duty to protect every child's rights, safety, and educational opportunity. The primary factor in academic success is the educational environment within the home. By not taking action now, you continue disrupting the educational environment in most of your students' homes. Please stand with parents, stand with girls, reaffirm Herman's commitment to fairness and safety, and pass the MEI resolution. And thank you for something.
Thank you. Danielle, did you want to wait for public comment, or do you want to speak now?
I think whatever works for you.
Now is fine with me.
Thank you. Before I get started with what I was thinking, I just want to thank John for speaking up and having a dialogue in front of all of us about your thoughts. That was a refreshing change, and I appreciate it. Tony, thank you for engaging too and asking follow-up and making comments. That kind of dialogue goes a long way with regards to the community. I'm not trying to say anything bad to you. You're in a very different environment. It's just very refreshing to have that ability. Jean, I would have loved to have heard your comments and what you had to say, because this is a really important decision. And I just really was curious as to what you were going to say. So if you would take the opportunity afterwards, I would be interested.
Well, I'm trying to learn procedure here. I wanted to actually comment to the gentleman that just spoke, but I didn't know if that was proper.
You certainly can, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll sit down, yeah.
May I comment with your statement, sir?
Absolutely.
So is it, I just want to have a dialogue. Is it your position that the Herman School Committee can supersede Maine law? Is that what you're suggesting?
I don't believe you violate Maine law by protecting girls.
Are you aware of the oath that I took when I took this position?
Correct.
And you mentioned the Doe case versus RSU 26. Have you read that case?
Have I read the whole case? No.
Right.
That's what we
You
went legal
understand
for.
that discrimination was found in that particular case, right?
Yep, and it was very limited. If you do read it, actually, if you do allow any students to use the opposite sex bathroom, the Maine Supreme Court said to have a medical diagnosis.
Which case was that, sir?
Doe versus RSU 26.
Supreme Court of where?
Maine Supreme Court.
All right. But you said you didn't read the case?
I don't have to read the case. I have lawyers who do that.
Okay. And you're aware there's countless cases across the country.
That reaffirmed Title IX.
BPJ versus West Virginia State Board of Education. Have you read that case?
No, sir.
Have
Like
you
I
read
said, it's
Doe
not my
versus
job to read
Horn?
those cases.
Have you read Doe versus Horn? The
It's not my job to read those cases. It's advocate for parents who want to protect their girls' sports and
Tyrell
spaces.
versus Edelbutt. Have you read that case?
No, sir.
There's cases all over the country that
There's cases every day.
are contrary to your position.
Awesome. It's your decision. The federal courts and the state have made this mess. You guys can fix it. That's the point of local control.
Well, right now we have Title IX, correct? We have Title IX and the 2 executive orders from President Trump, correct?
Correct.
Versus the Maine Human Rights Act and the 10th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause, correct?
Absolutely.
There's a bit of a contradiction of what we can do as a Herman School Committee.
It's your
Do you agree
choice.
with that?
It's your choice.
Yeah, but Mr. Venziano tonight has a call for resolution, which is the proper way to do this, isn't it? To go to Augusta and actually...
No, absolutely not. We are talking because of Augusta. We are talking because of the federal government.
They're the ones that
You
make
guys
the
can fix
laws.
it. That's what our advocacy is. You fix it. Stop worrying about the state and federal government who keeps messing things up.
They make the law, sir.
You have a choice to follow federal law. You can follow state law. 3 districts say we're going to protect our girls' sports and spaces. That's simple. Not making it any more. The lawyers can all go do that. And last I checked, none of those 3 districts are getting sued. It's not discriminatory to protect the students' sex-based rights.
So just to close this up, because thank you for coming, by the way.
No
We're
problem.
just having a dialogue.
I get it.
Honestly, just to be honest with you, I think that you're making some good points. It's not like I totally disagree with the position. I think it's a logical discussion we could have. I think the issue is just the polarization of it, that it's so black and white. I don't think it's a black and white subject, as everybody makes it out to be. I think there is compromise, and I think that could get us a long way with this particular subject. But that's just me. But I also wonder if that's the Herman School Board's role. I still think it's Augusta. I think Mr. Venziano has a point that we need. He's doing a call for resolution later on in the agenda with the MSBA. That's where this belongs. And how about the Maine Principals Association? Aren't they have exclusive jurisdiction over sports?
No.
What about that?
They revised
What are they doing?
They revised their policy in 2024 to put sole authority on the school district to designate kids transgender for athletics. Says it word for word.
So the school committee code of ethics that I have, letter R, I will recognize at all times that the school committee of which I am a member is an agent of the state, and as such I will abide by the laws of the state and the regulations formulated by the Maine Department of Education and by the State Board of Education. I just think that some of the public that represents your position is putting way too much power in the Herman School Board of what we can do. I am obligated to follow the law.
And the U.S. Constitution. The MSBA made a mistake going to the RSU 373 school board, reading that and omitting U.S. before the word Constitution. And I wouldn't do that because it's not right.
The very case you're citing, Doe versus RSU 26, part of that decision says school policies must comply, under certain circumstances, but school policies must comply with the Maine Human Rights Act. That's the highest court in the state of Maine that says that. You want me to contradict that because I'm on the Herman School Board, and you said I should.
We have provided legal basis for the foundation, a foundational legal basis before I came here tonight in email. Everyone got it. So no, it's not me. I'm not an attorney. I'm a grassroots organizer to make sure those people's voices are heard. And I work through legal. And you got the legal argument, so you can now take that legal argument and say, I do want to protect girls' sports and spaces.
And you don't think we're opening ourselves up for more legal problems in Herman by contradicting our own state law?
You are if you're not through direct action anyway. So I don't tell them that there's no legal mess. I'd say it's a choice, and that we want you to choose and follow federal law to protect girls' sports and spaces.
Don't you think we'll have more clarity, sir, about, I don't know, when this federal case in Maine, or the United States Supreme Court's going to hear some cases soon? We'll have much more clarity on this issue.
So the Bostock case, that's a pretty popular case where they redefine sexual orientation with gender identity, and now that's being associated with everything else. That sexual orientation across everything now includes gender identity. Except in the Bostock case, the Supreme Court said this does not go outside Title VII. So no, I don't trust that some case in D.C. or Augusta is going to be actually no. I do not trust what the Supreme Court says school districts will do because I've personally watched it for 6 years. Just like the Doe case. The Doe case says this is not to allow any person, any student to decide, self-declare some gender identity to use the opposite bathroom. It does not say that. It says you need a medical diagnosis and a plan. Because in that case, the kid at 2 years old, she was a boy. She went to elementary school as a boy. Nobody cared because it was real. And that's not what students are facing now. They're facing kids coming into schools, making that declaration the same day, and that violates that court order.
Well, I agree with you that particular case, the Supreme Court in that case didn't make it blanket that anybody that transitioned could just use the other locker room, right? It didn't say that in paragraph 23, paragraph 24. I agree with you. I did want to say, though, recently, I don't know how much time we want to do this for. Tell me if I'm going on and on here.
Go right ahead.
No, LD 233, is it? Let's see. LD 233, an act to prohibit biological males from participating in school athletic programs and activities designed for females when state funding is provided to the school, was presented in Augusta. It didn't pass. Just happened. LD 1134, an act to prohibit males from participating in female sports and using female facilities. Didn't pass. But we just keep at it. It's not passing down there. But you want us, Augusta's not doing it.
Yeah. That's what you're for.
Maine human rights. I don't think that's what I am for.
Well, that's what we believe you're for.
We develop policy around the law.
You are within the law, federal law.
All right, so you're saying Title IX enables us to do this, is your position?
It enabled you to do it before gender identity, so of course it enables it now. And the 2024 Title IX revisions, for one thing, had a lot more to do than this. We've gone through with school boards and worked through where it violates parents' rights and a whole other thing. So I wouldn't take it lightly, this conversation, just for the 2024 Title IX revisions. But yes, back to your question. You have absolute authority to enforce Title IX to protect girls' sports and spaces.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I appreciate you guys giving it the time and dedication it deserves, because I really think that this is what we need as a community. We need to understand why you're making decisions, so thank you, Tony, for slowing it down to speed it up. I just wanted to speak. I'm not a lawyer, don't pretend to be a lawyer, but I have a few questions that have come up that make me wonder if federal law is something that we can follow. I understand that there appears to be a conflict between state law and federal law, and I understand it's going through the court system now. By that time, our one girl that's has competed against a male will probably graduate by the time it gets through the court system, and she'll have to deal with it her whole career. And so I just want to put that out there. So there is a cost to not following it. And we don't know who's going to show up in September in Herman and whether or not they're going to choose to use the bathroom or not. So we don't know what's coming either. So this isn't something that will be quick. I completely agree. What Brian is doing is fabulous, and I support his desire to bring it through that avenue. I don't think it's a one and done. I think we need to look at more options than just one. And I would be interested, Jean, in your thoughts on the fact that at the collegiate level, they are following Title IX, and also the University of Maine system, the entire system that the governor appoints the board of directors for, is also following Title IX, and they're not allowing males and female spaces. So why can the University of Maine system, who has board of directors designated by the governor and affirmed by the legislature, why can they follow Title IX and we can't? I really would, and no disrespect meant to Eugene, I realize that you are a lawyer, I really wish that we would get an outside legal opinion on Title IX in outside of who we have used as a school department, who's also who the Maine Principal Association uses. Who the Maine Teachers Association uses. And I would be curious, does the Maine Principals Association use the same law firm? Dr. Sargent, if you could provide me at your discretion that information, I'd appreciate it. Because it seems to me we're getting one legal opinion 2 to 3 different ways, so I'd be interested in others. I appreciate your time on this, and I appreciate your hearing the discussions and the questions. It's good stuff, and I realize you guys are all in a very difficult situation because it appears that you may have to go against state law in order to potentially follow federal law like the University of Maine system is doing and as the NCAA is doing. It's unfortunate that you're in this situation. Nobody at this table created it, but you are left with the mess because you're in charge of this school and these girls and these families. Not in charge of the girls, but in their situations that they're put in. So I appreciate you giving us the time and attention. I'm curious, will there be another time where a policy that's more appropriate to this discussion will be coming forward?
That's a good question.
That would really, this is our first priority because we've been through numerous earlier reads on it and we wanted to be clear about exactly what it covers. It would be helpful to have this in place for the coming school year so that if we're faced with students making reports or staff members making reports, we have the proper procedures in place. We would also, committee members, you'll recall also on tonight's agenda is the approval of a revised job description for the affirmative action and Title IX coordinator. So that would be clean and get us ready for the coming year. I think after that, it's a conversation with the policy subcommittee, in addition to looking at other policies that may currently be on the books that are outdated, no longer reflect current philosophy or current practice. So I can't speak right now as to where that would all fit in.
Okay. And then I forgot what I was going to say, it left me, but thank you for that answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, I will say one thing. It doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy when I have one legal opinion saying one thing and another legal opinion saying another thing.
As a business owner who is therefore a board of a director of a business, I completely get it. And honestly, you guys, I hate to be this blunt, but you guys are in those seats to make those tough decisions. And you're the only people in our community that can make the decisions. Nobody else can make them but you. And so I appreciate you giving it the due diligence. And warm and fuzzy isn't great. I get it. Thank you.
Thank you. Haley, come up, but make it quick, please.
Yes, I will.
I just want to make a point to Mr. Sullivan's comments. First, MSMA is very clear at the bottom of their policies. It states that these policies are a starting point. They are not to be taken or intended to be verbatim replication. And the board rarely does one board's policy serve exactly to address the concerns of other school units. So it's about local control. So I hear what you're saying, and it's valid debate or valid banter. However, you are elected to have local control. These are a starting point so that you have the power to shape it to meet the community's needs if you so choose to listen to the community. And I encourage the board to remember that you have that power to do that and to make it and shape it for our community. And it also says that these are sample policies and are not considered legal advice. To say that these policies are handed to us, that they are perfect and to be abided by as though they're worthy of the law, I don't think that's a fair statement, Mr. Sullivan. So, starting point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I ask Solicitor Sarvin and Alan? I have an awful name to pronounce too. So, mind if I ask him?
Absolutely.
I know that you've referenced 3 RSU 70, 73, and 52. Did they pass your resolution? Have any of them passed policies yet that we could look at?
We're working on them. We have sample policies that they can reference.
So I'd just be interested in doing the policies they pass. That's all, as a starting point also.
Okay. We can make sure you get them.
Okay, student reports. Did I miss anything? No summer reports because they're not here, so we'll go with that. Subcommittee reports. We haven't had any lately. Is there any members that have anything that from the last ones that they want to say anything about?
On the finance thing, I just wanted to give a legislative update of LD 1103, which allows schools to continue to carry over your unallocated fund balance to 9% each year, have been finally changed to be 9%. There was some discussion and concern over the fact that it would go back to 5% after the COVID era, and that was passed, that we are able to maintain 9% now as a matter of law. So that does help us. Yep, that does help us, so thank you.
Okay, great. Business, finance, approval of warrants. Can I have a motion?
Are we done with public comment?
Yeah, well, I've got everybody on the list. Anybody else for public comment? Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. I just echo what Danielle said. Thank you. You spoke very eloquently, and I would just echo what she said, so I won't repeat it. But I have a question, believe it or not, that's not related to Title IX. And it was about the complaint process, and you were kind of talking about a little bit, John. And I want to know if, having been through the system with my children, in middle school in particular, will there be any language regarding the harassment policies, kind of in a reverse way? If there's a child that is just repeatedly being complained on, and these complaints are not founded, and it's the same person issuing the complaint against the same kid, is there language in place, or will there be, to kind of prevent that, and almost like a kind of a filing a harassment complaint against the complainant, if you follow what I'm trying to say? I've had it where a child had several complaints placed against them, and every single time they had a complaint, they pulled out of class. They have to, like, no, I didn't do that. An investigation ensues. Yep, no, they didn't do that, and it happens over and over and over again. Is there a recourse, or will there be language to provide a recourse for that person that's actually being harassed by someone saying they're harassing them? Does that make sense, what I'm asking you?
So it sounds like what you're referring to would be reverse arrest.
Yes.
And in those instances, that would be something that should be reported to the school principal and or the guidance counselor, and that would be investigated just as any other form of harassment would be investigated. Certainly that would be taken seriously.
Because I know that there's language in there right now saying that, no reprisals. If you have a complaint, if you file a complaint, you're not going to, or retaliation, I think the retaliation is the word that was used. So I just want to make sure that if this is happening, that there is recourse without, well, no, we can't do anything to this person because we said we wouldn't retaliate against them, you know, so I just want to make sure that there's an avenue going forward to protect those students that are being harassed by being accused of harassing. If that makes sense.
You know, the principals deal with it all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they have any language or want any language, but I know they're on top of it.
Yeah. Okay. So if any of those policies were,
But it's not a bad idea to have some language in there.
well, just to give them a direction, because I've asked the question,
Sure.
you know, like at what point does this become harassment?
Yeah.
You know, and they genuinely didn't know the answer, and so I didn't know if there could be some language in there that
We'll
might
ask the
give
principals,
them.
because I'm sure they'd love to have some language in
Yeah.
there if it helps.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, approval of warrants.
So,
We got another one. I think we got Haley behind you, but we gotta make it quick, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I'm Josh Hunsinger. I'm a resident in the town of Herman. I would just like to share my personal opinion in regard to the harassment policy. I'm a strong supporter of having good policies against harassment and sexual harassment. But I would also like to share that my family has been involved in the case, well, not the case, but the discussion regarding the gender issue in school sports. It's been brought up a few times, and I just would like to be very clear that we do not feel that harassment and discrimination necessarily fall into nice, neat lines. And we aren't concerned, we are not moving to have discrimination downplayed, removed, or otherwise blocked by policy. What we are looking for is to ensure safety for all students. And my daughter specifically participated in a competition in which she had a member who was of the male gender in that competition. Now, granted, she scored lower in the competition because of his participation, but my concern is more in that her sport is basically like a one individual sport. It's pole vaulting. My concern is more in line with sports where you've got those biological males participating with biological females, and they have a strength advantage in a case where somebody could get injured seriously or otherwise. Aside from the fact that, you know, having males in female spaces and females in male spaces causes other challenges and opens up opportunity for sexual assault, sexual harassment, but also just the safety of the students in sports when you have people that have a biological advantage over other members in that sport due to their gender. So just want to make sure that I'm being clear with what our intent is, and that we would like to see that the school board look at that specifically, not necessarily tied to harassment or discrimination, but ensuring safety of all students in the sport that they participate in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you very much for allowing public comment, which is separate from your other workshop. After 4 years of advocacy on behalf of this community on both sides of that table, my experience serving in office confirmed one thing, that we cannot in fact trust the process. Our district is being sued for discrimination, and I was called as a witness in that case. After learning your representation was non-compliant with the court discovery and falsified a transcript specifically to me, on January 10th, I notified that I could not trust your selected attorney, and then I needed a new attorney for the deposition. As elected officials, we are covered and should be treated equally, otherwise it's discrimination. The school insurance agreement states, quote, "We will pay on behalf of the insured defense expense at any stage of the claim." Between pages 14 and 43, it defines that school board members are covered. On March 25th, you were notified by my attorney, Weber, that this bill should be covered, and that as I'm a witness in my official capacity in this case. Of all of the conflicts that exist in this district, the most egregious is your law firm. Their track record is self-serving at the taxpayer's expense, and you are responsible. The school has paid to cover everyone else's legal expenses except mine. Perhaps that's because the legal team wants another lawsuit, since that is where they make their money. It's my understanding that the school is already on the verge of losing insurance from the number of lawsuits. I was notified recently that this case is going to trial. Clearly, we are letting history repeating itself since I was left out of that communication. Many on the board have chosen to lead this district into legal disasters, refusing to cover the legal bills that I have incurred as a result of your actions is retaliation, is discrimination, and will result in further legal repercussions. So with that, I ask that you reimburse me for the amount that I've had to pay during my 2 depositions. You guys have had that on the agenda. You refuse to make a motion to discuss that. It should be covered by the insurance company. It's a conflict of interest for them to even deny it. You all that have been called to testify were paid for. So, thank you.
Thank you.
May I respond to Mr. Director Venziano?
Yes, but please make it quick.
It's
These
quick.
people are gonna kill
The
me.
resolution that we're asking you to pass is not just a resolution, so it sounds good to mark it. The last part is a directive. There's 4 directives. But in the beginning sentence, it says immediately and through policy. So immediately means, in such the case in RSU 70, the next day they immediately stopped allowing a student using the opposite bathroom. So if you read the wording, it is being used to effectively start the next day, and then policy catches up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve the warrants is listed.
So moved. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Abstaining because it's
Yeah.
it's budget.
Yep, thank you. Okay, personnel, go ahead.
Committee members, we have recommendation, I'll take these in chunks. First recommendation is for the regular employment of school nurse and other staff members. Is there a motion for employment under number 1?
Motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for Erica, Lori, Nicholas, and Jenna.
Second.
Any discussion?
The only thing that I wanted to know, and thank you, Barb, for answering, as of July 3rd, who is covering for girls basketball?
So what we'll do is we have a number of staff members handling summer boys basketball conditioning. And the plan is that because there's a number of staff, we're able to borrow from that and offer a girls conditioning opportunity until such time as a coach is named.
So we approved Matt Murray and Mr. Reed, so it's one of them?
I don't have that approval in
Okay,
front of me, so I'm going to trust you and say yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure, those are the ones that we approved, so I want to make sure that those are the ones that are running that program. That's all.
Okay, all those in favor? All those, no opposed? Unanimous.
Under special education, these are 2 staff members recommended to assist with our extended school year program.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Item number 3 is a transfer, keeping this staff member in the same building, but moving to a part-time position for the 2025-26 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? And they don't know, right? Middle school. Yeah.
Did you? Can I abstain? I was not, sorry about that.
No problem. I'm sorry, Debbie, I've let the meeting go
No,
so
it's
long,
all right,
we're
it's
starting
all
to
right,
fall
it's
asleep.
all right.
Go ahead.
Under number 4, this is co-curricular and extracurricular positions with the note that the retroactive approval for the 24-25 school year for a teacher acting as a mentor, this just never made the agenda last fall. And in order to compensate this staff, we need approval. That's the reason for the late notice, and then the various coaches and assistant coaches.
motion?
I'll move to approve the second year mentor.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second the second year mentor portion for Sarah Fuller.
Right. Any discussion?
I'd like to take the coaches separate if we could, please.
Sure. Yeah. Any discussion on the motion in hand, just for the one?
No.
Okay.
Can you confirm where the mentor will be? Is it?
Thank you, this is at the middle school.
All those in favor?
That's the middle school mentor is what we're voting on.
Yeah, just, yeah. All set, and they're not, they're abstaining. Yeah. Okay, go ahead on the, well, go ahead on the motion for,
I move to approve Jeremy McIntyre JV basketball.
Second.
any discussion?
JV baseball.
Oh,
I'm
baseball.
sorry, I didn't have my glasses
That's
on.
right.
Put my glasses on. JV baseball.
Any discussion?
I would suggest that we do not approve JV coaches unless we've approved the varsity coach for the year. And have we had time to do spring evaluations of coaches?
Spring evaluations should be wrapped up by the end of this week, and again, I don't have the list of which varsity coaches have been approved at this time.
I don't believe those have been approved by the year, for the year, but.
I mean, we did table the JV basketball last meeting.
Correct.
Because we did not have the varsity coach, so that would be consistent with what we've done in the past.
Okay, is this gonna double us up time-wise if we wait till the next meeting before we approve these people?
It's baseball and softball, so.
We should be okay.
I move to amend my motion to table the JV baseball and JV softball coaches.
Okay.
I would need a second to amend that.
Are you taking them individually or just for those two?
For those two.
Just for those two? Yeah, I second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor
Of
for
tabling.
tabling those two? Anybody opposed? Okay. All right, now I need another motion for the other four, if that's the way you guys want to go, or.
Okay. I move to approve the indoor track coach, indoor track assistant coach, spring track, and varsity girls test.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it to open it up for discussion.
Okay, it's opened up for discussion.
The spring track assistant is the same thing as the JV, and I should have caught it all at the same time, but I don't see the spring track coach approved.
Move to amend.
Second.
Okay, so you're gonna do the indoor track coach and the indoor assistant. And then, so you're just gonna go with two of them, or you're gonna go with just exclude the, yeah. So you're just gonna exclude the spring track assistant for now?
Yes.
You wanna table it like you did the last time?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll do the table on that after we finish this vote. So now we're going
Actually,
with
you have to do the table first, because it's within the.
well, you just picked out 3 of them, so if you only picked out 3 of them, we can table the other ones separate, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now we're voting on I believe, the indoor track coach, the indoor track assistant, and the varsity girls tennis. Is that what you guys got?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have to say, I'm only one vote. I don't support them. I haven't had a good personal experience, and I don't believe that they're the best fit for our students. Our outdoor numbers decline greatly. I know that signups vary, but when the numbers go from 90 to 50 for outdoor track, I know the coaches mentioned that it's due to the athletes had great experience with the throwing coach for outdoor track, but I just can't support it personally. and for what's best for our students.
Can I make a motion for executive session on that?
You can make a motion to try to table it. But I don't believe we can go to executive session. I don't know, John County.
Boy, that's a good question. I'm not gonna argue with the lawyer.
Well, Gene, are you seeking a chance to get additional information? Because I think I'm flying blind myself.
That and just to talk more privately about it. If this, I don't know if this is a confidential discussion about this topic, or something that should be an executive session.
So perhaps the school committee members, if you're not prepared to vote on, it sounds like girls tennis is the only one that people are comfortable moving forward with. So perhaps there's the consideration to approve girls tennis, table the rest. I don't recommend going into executive session in the middle of the meeting, only because I'm not prepared for the questions that you may be asking. And furthermore, the staff members associated with those roles are also unaware that conditions of their employment may be discussed.
And we don't have any MRSA numbers to throw out at yet either. So I don't think we could go into executive session.
Can I ask for clarification on John Holyoke mentioned twice? I think you guys explained it, but I missed it. Is that intentional or is that a misprint?
2 different seasons.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, where are we? Are we gonna just vote? No. I mean, we had the discussion, so that's still open. So we're just going to go ahead and make a new motion for the varsity girls tennis.
We need to table those.
Somebody can amend.
So,
Go ahead and
amend the
amend
motion to table those positions as discussed.
indoor track assistant and spring track assistant.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Is this also the approval of tennis?
No, this is just
Just the table.
Just to table the other 3. Okay, now I need a motion to,
the motion is already there to approve the tennis. We've just cut everybody else out of the original motion. So the original motion, the only one remaining is the varsity
tennis.
So the motion is there.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Perfect. Unanimous. All right, job description approvals.
Board members, little by little, I'm going to be bringing some revised job descriptions forward. We try to do those as we hire for those positions. You'll recall that a month or so ago, we looked at the job description for our Director of Special Services at the time that he was hired. For your review this evening is the Director of Curriculum, Instructional Coach, Athletic Director, Gifted and Talented Coordinator, and the Affirmative Action Officer, Title IX Coordinator.
Suggest we take them one at a time.
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion then.
I move to approve the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment job description.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
What if you have suggestions for revision, and it's not huge content, but it's more like readability, initialisms, things like that? Is that wrong about this down?
No, absolutely. Let us know.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep, if it's part of the, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, that's fine.
If it's part of the curriculum, Director of Curriculum, that's part of the discussion. You'll second it, so there's a discussion.
Yeah. So there's instances where Maine Department of Ed has mentioned a couple times initialism, turning that into an initialism, MDOE, after first mention of it, right? Same with Herman School Department, turn that into HSD and subsequent uses. Same as the way the policy flows when you're on the second page in your last bullet point in item 3 under professional development. The first mention of PEPG. Later in the document, I realized that refers to performance evaluation and professional growth. I just argue, spell that out the first time you're seeing it. Likewise, further down on that page, when you get into ESEA, for newbies like myself, it's helpful to know what that is, or have that spelled out. So. That was it.
So those aren't really changes, those are just spelling out abbreviations.
Correct. In some spots, and then doing the reverse in others. But yeah, that's what I was asking. I don't know if this is where we talk that out, or if we make those edits offline, or.
So that's fine, and then the motion to approve director of curriculum with the noted clarifications would be fine too.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Okay, I'll take the motion on the next one if you want.
I move to approve the job description of instructional job coach.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Appreciate the revision that I asked for, so thank you very much.
Yep. All in favor? Unanimous? Athletic director? Job description?
Yeah, we'll move to approve the job description of the athletic director.
Second. Any discussion?
Numbering will need editing with the omitted pieces.
I know under number 2 it says sportsmanship. I just, something in there about the fans displaying good sportsmanship and the players. I know it's there for one word. I think it's important, and maybe it's on here and I missed it, but to ensure that district policies and procedures are followed. I think it's important to ensure that we are really holding our coaches accountable and providing the best for our students. I know that it does say there, but I think that that's really something that's important.
I see under 19 it says coordinate with recreation director for non-school use of playing fields and facilities. Who's responsible for scheduling our schools' facilities? I thought that was the AD. Does that fall under whether it's the facility principal, or is it?
So the practice is that the town recreation folks submit their requests for use of the various schools through a calendar, and then those are tracked either with the building principals in the case of middle and elementary, or with our athletic director and our high school principal at the high school level. Additionally, one of the things that I would like to review and clean up this summer is our facility use form, so we can just have a much cleaner process on that and understand that the correct approvals and the correct requests are happening in a timely manner.
I am thankful that you want to tackle that. Thank you. For that reason, are we going to, what if this job description is over the main responsibility of overseeing that? Should we wait until that is updated for this job description?
I don't think that this particular job description or that this particular position handles use of facilities, because as I said, we have the other principals involved as well. Certainly when it comes to high school campus, that's a key portion of it, but the high school principal also will be looking at the calendar as we did this past spring when things got busy and we had other events happening. Everybody's really weighing in to understand what we can handle as far as capacity on our parking lots and our campus.
No, perfect, thank you. So that goes back to my point of adding the line, ensuring district policies and procedures are followed.
I have a question regarding reports to. I usually think of when you have a position description, your report to is your boss, your evaluator. It's listed as building principal, yet the AD, while it's limited at the middle school, the job description also includes grades 6 through 12. So is there an issue with the principal when it includes limited, but still middle school athletics? On the supervisory side of it.
I think in practice, there has not been an issue. Seeing it on paper, we can certainly make principals plural in the instances where there's a middle school responsibility.
Okay, any other questions? So you all set with the number change and making principals plural?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, unanimous, I think. Did you
Oh, no, I
vote?
didn't even vote.
Oh, did you want to vote for or against?
I'd like to just vote against because I'd like to see
Okay.
further recommendations, but it's fine.
Sure. Okay, gifted and talented coordinator.
Move to approve the gifted and talented coordinator job description.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Nobody, so good. Affirmative action officer, Title IX coordinator.
Move to approve the affirmative action officer Title IX coordinator.
Second.
Any discussion? All of them,
In number 5, provide support for parties when sexual harassment is reported throughout the investigation and resolution process. Support, I know that can mean a lot of things, so I don't know how granular that needs to get in this policy, or if there's, what is that? When we're talking about support, is that just like consultation and supervision, we're processing through a tricky situation ongoing?
So depending on the situation and the age of the student and or staff member involved, there are a number of support systems in place within the school community, from guidance counselors to mental health specialists to school psychologists. So I think leaving it general allows for a more situational response.
okay, have we voted on that yet?
Nope, it's been seconded, so.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Good. Okay, now old business, excused absence, I think we're all set there. New business?
No, please, under old business.
Yeah.
If I could make a motion, please correct me if I'm going off on this, going astray. I move to rescind the motion from the June 9th committee meeting approving the Transco copier contract renewal.
Second.
Okay.
So this is proper. You've got a first and a second, and you can just move forward for a vote from that.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. New business, go ahead.
Well, thank you to Debbie and to Stephanie for interviewing the students who submitted applications to be considered as candidates for our student representative for next year. We're excited to welcome Hannah to our table. I don't know whether we'll see our students in August. We'll definitely see them for September, but they provide a really rich component to the meetings and are just a really thoughtful and wise voice. Also attached is the meeting schedule for the remainder of the 25-26 school year. And so once that is approved, that can be posted to the district site, so everyone's available of the remainder of the school committee meetings. And then for number 3, I will turn it over to Mr. Benziano for the resolution discussion.
First of all, do you need a motion to approve Hannah?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I move to approve Hannah Wanning as the, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, as student representative for the 25 through 27 school years.
Second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Welcome aboard. Hannah.
I move to approve the 25-26 Herman School Committee meeting schedule.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a request. In the past 2 years, we've had subcommittee meetings that have been throughout the month that have found ourselves very often related to finance, but it was either the month hasn't been closed out yet, or it was late in the month and the numbers were old. So I'm asking for consideration that the school committee calendar be moved to our regular school committee meeting be on the second Monday of the month, barring holidays, and the first week of the month be allowed to schedule subcommittee meetings so that it will be at the beginning of the month, so all the subcommittee information will either be closed out or fresh.
I think that's reasonable. It only looks like there's August, November, January, February, March, April, May. Some of them are already on that second.
Yep.
We just would have to make a decision about October, because that's a holiday. Meaning, does it go to the 20th or to the 6th?
Yeah. Brian had mentioned it to me. My only concern was everybody's used to the first Monday, and I didn't want the public getting upset on saying, well, how come you guys are hiding your school committee meetings? The second thing is, and I thought of it later, does that bother you at all?
It gives more time to get the reports together.
Okay.
Tony, that is a valid question that you had, and we could keep August the same for that reason. Maybe it's not enough notice, meaning that one stayed August 4th. That's valid.
Okay.
So then start to change them in November, January, February, March, April, May.
Phase it in.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Bob?
All right, let me, if I could just get clarification. So we're looking to have the November meeting be November 10th. Is there a requirement that the January meeting has to happen as early as possible in the new school year, or can we go to the 12th?
Yeah, 12th.
Okay.
That would be the first full Monday, or the second full Monday of the week.
Okay.
So we'd be looking at November 10th, December 8th, January 12th,
February 9th,
February 9th,
March 9th.
March 9th, April 13th, May 11th, June, is already listed as June 8th.
All right, I think this works for now. As we back into budget preparation deadlines by when we need to have budget to the town, if it's necessary to rearrange, for example, the March or April meetings, we can certainly do that.
Right.
Okay.
And we also could, if it's to do with the town, we also could have two meetings. We could actually meet on the first Monday.
Okay.
If there was a deadline for the town manager to have something in for the vote at the end of the year.
Okay.
And I request this with the assumption that then, as a follow-on, subcommittee meetings would be in the first week of the month, so that we don't move these and then the subcommittee meetings just stay out there.
Understood.
Okay, any other discussion?
Just that I'm kind of relying on your expertise here in terms of doing this for a couple of years. It makes sense what you're proposing.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. And the next one's Brian, right?
So I'm the one that submitted to the committee the MSBA call for resolution. Actually, it was an alert or a notice that Dr. Sargent put out that grabbed my attention. As John and Jean, I'm the Maine School Board Association delegate for UTC, not for Herman. That's one of the other things we'll have to look at. But last year I learned the importance of the use of Maine School Board Association. And they've put a call out for resolutions. It can be a resolution for whatever we feel is important. And I'm just going to read what is out of paragraph 2. The adopted resolutions provide a platform of beliefs from which all school board members of the Maine School Board Association can operate to encourage the support of the legislature and general public for appropriate actions to improve public education in the state of Maine. These resolutions guide the Maine School Board Association officers and board of directors on the decisions an association would take on various education issues, including positions on proposed legislation. And that's where I come on this one. This is the resolution that I'm proposing is related to male athletes participating in female athletic competitions and male students accessing, or Maine student access to female personal spaces. This is not a change to the letter that I included on the email. It's an excerpt from that letter. When I took the School Board Association proposed resolution format, I realized our letter really didn't comply with it. So what I'm asking is for us to look at a resolution to the Maine School Board Association on behalf of these two subjects that I've discussed. And it really is, in other terms, our ability to lobby the legislature on this subject. So I emailed out the letter that we discussed in past months, and then I took the liberty of breaking out the letter into these two separate resolutions, if you'd like to look at them. On the front side is draft resolution of our resolution. On the back side is an example of the resolutions as they have made it, an example of resolutions that have made it to Maine School Board Association delegation. The process is, I understand it, and Dr. Sargent, please, or principals, please correct me if I'm off base on this, is we provide these resolutions to the Maine School Board Association. They consolidate them, and if there are multiple schools that have like resolutions, they will put them together. And then for the Maine School Board Association Delegate Assembly in October, a delegate from each school committee will represent the school and vote on these resolutions that will then represent the Maine School Board Association to, as I stated, their officers, board of directors, and legislators. So for the good of the conversation, because I know not everybody has a copy of them in front of it, the first resolution that I have proposed using the format that was provided, the subject is male athletes participating in female athletic competitions. The proposed position is, not to confuse things, I have Herman School Committee, but when it would be published, it would be published as the Maine School Board Association opposes male athletes participating in female athletic competitions. And then the required format is to give a rationale, not that they will then produce the narrative. The rationale is female athletes deserve a safe, competitive environment on an equitable playing field. Physical advantage of males over females increases the risk of injury to the female athlete, while the option to participate in female sports rests with the male, the risk of injury rests fully on the female. The current competitive environment provides significant rewards to top-performing student athletes. Sports can be the pathway for scholarships and future opportunities. A recognized rank in sports adds to a student's accomplishments and are considered on college applications. The selection of a choice college or the award of a scholarship can change the trajectory of a female athlete's life. We ask you to support legislation and policy to protect the safety and opportunities for female athletes. That would be the first one that I'm bringing forward that I ask you to consider. Do we want to talk about that one, or do you want me to continue on with the second one?
Mr. Chair. Doesn't matter to me. Go ahead.
Does anybody have any comments on the first one?
No, I would support it. I don't know what others are, but.
I fully support it as written.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate your time that you provided this for us.
You picked up on the S. I saw you go for the pen a second.
Well, I would, just in terms of my comment, I don't support it. I think it's going to put Dr. Sargent in a tough position. If we're just putting out there a call for resolution that's inconsistent with current policy and inconsistent with state law, and Dr. Sargent, in the meantime, is kind of placed in a situation where she has to implement current policy. I think we're putting our superintendent in a really bad position, number one. Number two, it just comes across to me like a political issue. I don't know the statistics, but when we look at the call for resolution in terms of enhancing issues in education, how many transgender athletes are in the state of Maine right now? I don't know the answer. I'm asking.
I don't know the answer either.
So it just strikes me as a political issue. That's and also all the other stuff I said earlier that I don't need to reiterate. So I would not approve of this.
I just want to be clear that this is a letter that you're suggesting that we send to the state.
This is a proposed resolution for the Maine School Board Association to lobby for the state.
Right.
It is not intended for the superintendent to take any action or have any action.
It would
is
not.
Us as a school committee telling the Maine School Board Association, this is something that we would support you lobbying so that future bills at the legislature would receive the Maine School Board Association support for male and female sports.
It's not changing our policy.
It
Correct.
doesn't address our policy.
Correct.
Yeah.
It just is saying our opinion.
Our opinion to the lobby side of it. Right?
Yeah.
I just want to also say I applaud you for, the one thing I like about this is that we're going to Augusta, or you're trying to get somebody down there to lobby for a change. I do think that's the appropriate channel to do it. So thank you.
Did you want, Tony, did you want a motion to take these separately, or what would you like?
Well, I want to make sure the superintendent's okay with it first.
Well, as Brian explained, this is the school committee's opportunity to work with your state organization, Maine School Management and Maine School Boards, to bring ideas, topics that you think are worthy of conversation at the state level. So this is one of the very few opportunities you have for that discussion.
Okay. I mean, I'm all in favor of it. I just don't, the legal ramifications was the only thing I'm worried about.
We're just stating our opinion, I thought.
Yeah. And the hard part is we're a little bit under a time constraint now because they've told us for their process, our resolutions are due to them by July 28th.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
If not everybody agrees with this, can we put the majority of the Herman School Committee?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, the resolution would say the Maine School Board Association, because from here we'll submit it, it'll be consolidated with other schools, and then the Maine School Board Association Delegate Assembly will vote on it again to see if even the Maine School Board Association agrees to it. So it won't have the Herman name on it, it'll have Maine School Board Association. It's just being proposed by the Herman School Committee. But I can change that to the majority.
Go ahead, Danielle.
I just want to say you guys work as one body, and as soon as you vote, you're working as a body, not as individuals. So it should stand as your entire committee, not the majority of the committee, if you're going to take an action. Respectfully said.
All right, any other discussion? We want to take these one at a time? Is that what you want to do, Brian?
I personally, so in reading the letter, Brian, I appreciate your work on it. Sounds like it landed on this group, and that's okay. In processing through this information, I am intrigued by things Jean mentioned earlier, where we talked about compromise, and for me, I come at that from a place of compassion. And the reason I'm saying that is because, to use the recent example of the pole vaulter who chose not to compete in the state games. And I don't know if we're aware of this or not, but this individual chose not to compete in that because they were bullied. And that's unacceptable. I feel like any school committee, any community in the state of Maine should find that disgusting and should stand against that. And so the reason I say that is I feel like we can protect female athletes, honor the spirit with fairness, but we have to advance that in a spirit of compassion. And we have to recognize the humanity of these kids because they are kids and they're having a hard time, and I think we just need to have that mentality when we approach this issue.
I heard you. I heard what you said.
Yeah.
And I believe in compassion. Yeah. But my daughter deserves your compassion too. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? She deserves compassion too. She deserves a fair and equitable, competitive environment. You cannot marginalize one group and lift another. And that's all I have. Thank you.
In the way this it was written, I attempted to meet that bridge by the way in which we ask you to support legislation that protects the safety and opportunities for female athletes. And so the resolution is to tell our legislators that we support females in female sports, males in male sports, right, without saying it in a derogatory or directive way.
Right, right.
And how does that legislation look? They're the professionals. I'm a school committee member. I don't know how to draft state legislation, sure, but I'm saying I want to advocate and lobby for legislation that says boys should be in boys sports and girls should be in girls sports. Mm-hmm. And how that looks, that's what legislators are for.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is if I'm a part of if I'm a part of a committee that advances this letter, it has to have that spirit to it. Okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. And to Ms. Hunsinger, you and I had an exchange through my campaign page where I think I made it very clear that I'm all for protecting our girls. I'm a father of a female athlete, and I align with your passion, okay? And I just want us to kind of get to this place where I think Jean called it compromise or common ground earlier, where we can protect our females and we can also...
Absolutely. There's
right,
nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely.
But you have to be compassionate to everyone.
And by voicing emotional support or like spiritual support for a trans athlete doesn't mean there's no compassion for females and biological females competing. So I don't think those are exclusive, if that makes sense. I'm not exclusive.
My own daughter stood up and said the exact same thing, that she has zero issue with, and I don't have any issue with trans children.
Sure.
I believe that all children need an equitable playing field.
Yeah, right. And so like I'll tell you, I've read a lot about this stuff, and I intend on continuing to read. And I want everybody to continue reading things that challenge their perspectives. And the reason I'm saying that is, for instance, there's research going on right now where actually it's a trans female who is looking at, after somebody goes through hormone replacement, what kind of advantages do they retain in year 1, and then in year 2, and then in year 3. So could we get to a place where we're talking about hormone levels objectively, or we're talking about, so before I go too far down that rabbit hole, what I want to say is one thing that in recent research they showed that people who transition from male to female, one of the strengths they retain is grip strength. So a trans female athlete supersedes the abilities of a female athlete. So you talk about pole vaulting. To me, that would give a trans athlete a very serious advantage over biological females. And in that case, it's like, would it be fair to have them compete in that contest? Probably not.
No, I can tell you no.
Right. But I just want us to, what I'm saying, the reason I'm saying this is because I would love for us to get to a place where any statements we say about this are built in fairness, they follow the evidence, and there's like a spirit of nurturance or compassion, and that's all I was
Do you have a specific adjustment that you would like to add that we could?
Would it be okay if I had a little more time with this and sent you my comments?
The difficulty is we'd like to vote on it.
Right.
I hear you with what you're saying, no child should be bullied, absolutely.
Right.
But I also don't find this language to be that. So that's why I would wonder what would need to be changed. Because I do hear you, no child should be bullied, absolutely.
Yeah.
And none of us have that intent, and that's not the intent of this letter.
Sure.
Gene, you wanted to?
Well, I just feel like the second sentence in rationale, the physical advantage of males over females increases the risk of injury to the female athlete. I think that could be true, but I wonder if it's a conclusory statement, if it's always true. I don't know. I mean, there's things I would like to be educated about, but if there was a transgender athlete participating in a girls' event and they were roughly the same weight, is that something that people would feel there's still a risk of injury? Because I actually hear you. I feel like if there's muscle mass differences or weight differences, I hear the argument, but I just don't know if it's always true.
So does it change the true intent of the first paragraph if we just get rid of that sentence?
Or you could say could increase the risk of injury to the female athlete. Because it could. It's not necessarily going to, but you could just say that it could.
Does that satisfy?
Well, yet again, I'm probably not going to support this, so you guys do what you're going to do. But yeah, I just wanted to make that point. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, we could vote on them individually, or you could let me move on to the second one, and we can vote on them as the two. I would hate to lose one because somebody doesn't agree with a different one. So, why don't we just take them individually?
Okay. Yep.
I make a motion to approve the subject line male athletes participating in female athletic competitions with the amendment of the physical advantage of males over females could increase.
Second?
Okay.
That's actually that whole piece is going to be removed. It's going to say Maine School Board Association.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
The second one, entitled Male Student Access to Female Personal Spaces, it reads, proposed position, the Herman School Committee, which will be changed to Maine School Board Association, because it will be ultimately their resolution, opposes male students and athletes accessing female personal spaces. Rationale reads, many adolescent females will attest to the stress, embarrassment, and intimidation of having a male in personal spaces such as bathrooms and locker rooms. Accepting males in female personal spaces infringes on the female students' ability to comfortably attend to their private personal needs. The presence or threat of males in personal spaces creates an environment that adversely impacts the social emotional growth of adolescent females. We ask you to support legislation and policies that protect the privacy and social emotional well-being of female students.
I make a motion of approving the male's student access to female personal spaces, so we can open it up for discussion.
Okay. Go ahead. Discussion's
Oh,
open.
did somebody say a second?
I'll second it all. Okay, open it up for discussion.
Well, the John Doe versus RSU 26 case discusses this at length in terms of the Maine Supreme Judicial Court's kind of position on this, which is not a blanket statement. It certainly says in paragraphs 23 and 24 what the expectation is. The court says, we do not suggest that any person could demand access to any school facility. The Herman School Committee opposes male students and athletes accessing female spaces.
Thing I was thinking, Brian, along the same line under rationale, accepting males in female personal spaces could infringe. Just putting that word could, I mean, I have my own opinion of what it is, but I think taking away the opinion and just, I'm hearing what John's saying by softening it and saying the presence or threat of males in personal spaces could create an environment. Again, we all may have our own personal opinions. I have mine, but I think that reaches the happy medium to some degree.
Gene, you said you had some.
Oh no, I was listening to Steph and processing it. Sorry, it took a minute there.
I was just trying to take it away so that it's not a statement of an opinion and just that it could.
Right. And again, there's no guarantee that what we present to MSBA is what specific language will be put to the delegate assembly.
But I think, to your point, Brian, it's important that we try to get something in front of them by the end of the month.
I would say, not to belabor this, but if there's a respected diagnosis, as there was in the John Doe versus RSU 26 case, as well as cooperation with the school, there was a significant plan in place. If there was an exception for that, then that would be satisfactory to me. But otherwise, I'm probably not going to support it.
I didn't 100% follow. What line were you suggesting that we could add?
Well, not any specific line, just a caveat that says, I'm trying to find the language, but if the school has, I think there was in that case a 529 plan, you're looking for exact language though.
The overall intent of this was not with the exceptions.
Okay.
That's where we get. That's really where we are right now, is there's exceptions. So if we say with exceptions, the exceptions are referencing the laws that we want to change.
Understood.
Right?
Gotcha. I'm all set.
Okay, any other discussion?
So I've got two coulds added in.
Two coulds, to soften it a little bit. I'm all set with the first one. I struggle a little with the personal space thing. I just don't think we need to go there. I think if we make the statement that we don't believe that transgender athletes should be against girls' sports, that should be good enough. So
I specifically stayed away from the term transgender, because that opens up a whole other.
I just have males in female locker rooms. That's a hard no for me, but.
I don't like the word threat, where it says the presence or threat. I just think that language is pretty strong. And there's an insinuation that there could be, I don't like the insinuation.
Okay. I'm not going to gain your vote. I'll take the recommendation to remove or threat.
Yeah, but that word, the threat, is in there because it's just even the potential. If there's the potential that a male can be in the female space, that's not okay. So I think that's why that word threat was there. The presence or potential of males being in. Take the word threat out, but.
I think the word threat should stay.
Okay. Yeah, and yeah. Threat meaning that
The
could
threat
be
of
the
a
possibility, right? Yeah.
I'm going to keep his vote, and I already have it, so.
The presence or possibility.
Picking and
Is that what
choosing.
you're saying? The presence or possibility of males in personal space. Is that what?
That's what I said. It's the same thing. I don't want to remove it altogether because just the possibility that a male could even be allowed to be in a female bathroom in my mind isn't okay.
Okay, so we're back to two coulds.
Two coulds. And the possibility.
Threat.
Did you decide on the two coulds and the possibility? Or we staying with threat?
We're staying with threat.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? All those opposed?
5-2.
Okay.
Okay. I will put these in the Maine School Board Association format, and make sure a copy goes out to all of you when I send it forward. Does it need to go through your office as well, Dr. Sargent? Because ultimately the notice was forwarded.
One quick question. We're talking about keeping biological males out of female spaces. Should the language also include the other way, like female not going into male spaces as well? I mean, should that language be in there? That's just a question. That's all I'm asking. I just didn't know if that was something that we considered.
Tony and Jean. Yeah, I voted against it. Yeah, the second one. And vote for
John was a yes. Stephanie.
Okay, we all set?
Marianne, you were saying something and I got distracted.
Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted to include it the way the gender reverse it also, like females shouldn't go into male spaces as well. I don't know I didn't catch it if it was in that letter or not. I was just asking.
What?
Yeah,
Or if you should, or I don't know. Just throw it out there.
Okay, are we all set for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:41 p.m.
Second.
Okay, I'll accept that, must note.
Good job, John.
Thank you, Doug. It was a struggle with me, I'm sure.